Right, ATK Roadrex here with another version of Attack the Track. Today I'm going to show how I initially set up any race car for an event in ACC. Alright, so let's get this started. So first we're going to go to single player and create a practice session. Pick the track and car that you want. And then we're going to go to setup. So right off the bat, we're going to choose the aggressive preset. You can choose the other if you want, but this works for me. And initially going to change the ECU map down to 1. And I'm going to bring fuel down to 40. You can bring it down up or low. It's just what. And then front and rear brakes also bring down to 1. And then I'm going to save this as A for aggressive. You can name it whatever you want. But that just gives us a starting point. And then we're going to get on the track and do a few laps. Kind of easy laps because the tire pressure is low by default. And we just need to get these tires warmed up a little bit and help us determine an initial setting for the PSI for each tire. So here we go. So things are feeling a little bit loose. I'm not driving very hard. And there's a section at the top of the hill coming up here. You're going to see the car jag to the right a little bit. That could be due to car handling. It could be just my position right there. Sit. Yeah, just come up and just it wants to bite and go to the right. And we may address that a little bit too before this is over. All right. Alright, so we're finishing up our third lap here. And I've got a 1:44.385. So next what I'm going to do is we're going to exit. We're going to go back to the garage. And we're going to save this with that time in the name and the fuel quantity I started with and the temperature of the track. So put in here 1:44.385, 40 liters at 28C. Then I'm going to duplicate this because we're going to play around with the duplicate. If we need to go back, we can go back to it. So our PSI hot is 25.6 and our initial PSI is 24.2, and we need to get the PSI up to between 26 and 27.2. So I want to get mine about 26.8. So I bump that up a few clicks as a starting measure. I do the same here. And again for the right front. Right rear, left front. I'll just get all that knocked out here real quick. Aero. Tend to like these, have a little bump or two in the front just because, and the initial startup on these tend to be a little too high in the rear. So I just bumped that down to 62 just as a trial. I did bring my rear ring up a notch and this front brake duct down a notch. So the rear ring up will give me a little more downforce in the back. The brake duct down will reduce some of my oversteer, or at least it should. So here we go back on the track. And again, the main thing to get out of this is tire pressure. The other stuff is just things that I did after driving these few laps. And again, I'm just going to cruise at least the first lap because the tires are still cool. And then we'll get on it here. So here we are 3 laps later. Or another lap later, I should say. And this feels a lot better. Yeah, definitely going through the turns smoother. My time's not showing it. I'm a little behind the time. You can see in the upper left, it's in the red. I'm also unfamiliar with this track and running a fever, so you get what you get sometimes. This feels much better coming up that hill already. Let's see what we can do for our tires. Yeah, just getting a better corrected tire pressure works. I'm a little high I'd rather be more around the 26.8 range, but here I am. This is the finish of that lap. Let's see. It's at a 141.012. Let's go back to the garage and check this again. So again, I'm going to save it with the new time. And going to change the air adjustment just a little bit, just to get this more in the 26.8 range. It's just a range that works for me. Do the same for the right. And right rear, left rear. Next, we're going to look at the outer, middle, inner readings, the OMI of each tire. I notice on the right rear, we're about 20 points off, and we want that to be more between 10 and 15. So I'm going to adjust the camber down so that the inner wear will lessen and the outer wear will increase. How? I don't know that there's a formula. I'm sure there's one out there. And we will, again, use this as test 2. Now let's get back out on the track. All right, so we're starting lap 6. Tire's a little warmer now, or the PSI is up too, rather. And let's see how we do. 1/10 of a second off already. I mean, a lot of your track times are just going to go down because you drive it often. I have very little time on this track. I don't know that I've put 15 laps total, including this one. And it still feels good. It still felt good coming over the hill, even though I had that little bit of a jog. It didn't feel like the rear end was dipping down so hard. About 5/10 ahead of, whoops, too busy watching the meter in the upper left, not paying attention to what I'm doing. I just lost a couple tenths right there. While we're on this, as far as the OMI, the camber settings that most of the YouTubers use is the extreme to both. They'll set maximum camber on front and rear and call it good. So there's your winning strategy. I kind of like playing with this. It's just fun to me. And it works for me, I guess I should say. So if you don't want to mess with your camber and the outer, middle, inner readings, don't. Just max the camber out. Have a good time. All right, let's try this again. Yeah, still feels very good. Excuse me. Yeah. I'm still losing a little bit of time right there. It's all right. I don't think it's the car's fault. Or I should say, definitely not the car's fault. Okay. Ready to finish this lap. And let's see what the new time is. 140.4. Yeah, it felt pretty good. I think it got room to improve. So let's go back to the garage. Change the name so I know that this setup has brought me that time, 144.72. Whoops. Now let's duplicate that just so now I have a new setting to play with. Okay, I am going to adjust the PSI down just a notch here. Now I'm going to bring the camber in a little bit, again, just to bring those OMI readings a little closer together. Again, the YouTubers just leave them maxed out. I'm just having fun playing with the car. Ooh, something I forgot. Should have done this from the very first step. Bring your caster about 3/4 of whatever meter reading. Like this one's 11.2, yours might be higher or lower. But that also tends to help out some of the stability of the car, particularly if you have a higher rake, higher rear end than a front end. And yeah, I should have mentioned that, or should have performed that from the very first setting. That's just kind of a given. All right, just these a little bit. And just because my OMI is kind of drastic, it's changed with the new tire pressure. All right, let's overwrite T2. And we are ready to try this again. All right, let's get back on the track. Again, tire pressure is still a little cooler, so don't go all out on that first lap. Already feeling good though from that. Okay, so we just did 140.4. Oh no, that was last time. Currently almost 3/10 ahead of ourselves, or myself, since I'm the only one involved. Yeah, lost a little time there. Hill still feels good. I might be able to drop that rear spoiler down to 8 again. But probably the next thing that I would do. See if I can get a little more speed. If I really need it, maybe the tire pressure was enough to, or the tire adjustments were enough to make up the difference. Already 6/10 ahead. And again, that could just very well be because of practice, not necessarily tire changes, but definitely tire changes have something to do with that, because the initial tire pressure is just too low for this kind of track temperature. Still feels good. All right, we just did a 140.167. Roughly 12 laps, so again, roughly 24 minutes or so. We've got a much better setup than we started, and I'll be sure to save this with the new track time on it so I know which setup I used, and I've still got several of those previous setups to use in case I want to go back and try something again. Rinse and repeat as necessary. Now, just as a little hint, you can increase your bump stop range a little bit, and that will allow your front end of your car to dip down more under braking and give you a little more turn in, a little more oversteer. And But probably the more simpler way to do it is just to raise the rear ride height. And again, I like to keep my front ride height minimal, not necessarily on the bottom, maybe a step or two above. Like I said, you can crank this way up if you need to. I wouldn't go too much, but you'll feel it in the car. But at least your oversteer will start to increase as you raise the car up. I tend to like mine a little lower than what they suggest. You can even do your brakes. Supposedly that creates a little bit of drag on the front or rear the more you increase those numbers. But you have to watch your brake temperature. So anyway, that's it. And again, this is ATK Road Rex with Attack Motorsport International Sim Racing Team, reminding you to attack the track and not each other.